will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Murdoch, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Powell,
Here.
Hayes, Barstow.
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Hicken,
Here.
Walter,
Here.
Carter. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present tonight. First thing on the agenda is citizens' comments. Does anybody wish to speak tonight? Penny? Name and address, please.
Good evening, my name is Penny Zuber, and my address is 70 Highland Hollow Drive, Pataskal, Ohio, but I'm here representing Jersey Baptist Church. And I just come to you tonight to say thank you. Thank you to all the council members, to the recreation department, to the pool people, to the police department, to everyone that it took for BJ and everyone and the mayor to allow us to have Care Week. We had over 240 children from the Pataskal area attend. That did not count our 70-plus volunteers that attended for those 4 days. So it was a monumental event for the kids of Pataskala. We had 5 construction events happening at the same time. 3 were in this area, and 2 were in Johnstown. Then on Saturday, we had 2 more here in town that we did as part of our Care Week. So this can't happen without your cooperation. So I'm just here on behalf of Jersey Baptist Church and Taylor and Tyler and Pastor John and everyone else to say thank you so much for letting us serve the kids at Pataskala and some of our adults here. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and stay right there for a second. I was lucky enough to cruise through the park a couple of times, and it was amazing because you outgrew Municipal Park.
We did.
And we're now using Foundation Park, and it worked out really good. But I also wanted to thank you, one, for, again, bringing that back here and keeping it local. Plus, also, you think this lady's busy. She calls me a couple of weeks ago and says, hey, I need another project. And what you see in the front and the back here, the flowers that were planted here at City Hall were done by yet another group with Penny at the helm. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, and we plan to do it again, and we have a race coming up in August. So just once again, it's such a great partnership, and we appreciate y'all so much.
We
Thank
appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion? And roll, please.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. I was going to mention Penny planting the flowers, so we took care of that. Farmers market's in full swing. We had that discussion tonight with the food trucks. We'll need some direction, Scott and BJ, on, occasionally we have food trucks at the farmers market. So as we continue to talk about that, plus I think the library is having their food truck rally this weekend. So I know they work with the health department on that end of it. It's a one-day event. It's on library property, so I just wanted to make you folks aware of that. Hopefully you signed up. There's a waiting list for the CIC ED 101 out at Denison University on Wednesday night. I know Mr. King and I are going. I don't know if anybody else is. Very good, Mr. Barstow. Thank you. Twice in a row. Very good.
I wouldn't want anybody to accuse me of, being closed-minded.
Very good. So quickly approaching July 1st, will be our fireworks down at Foundation Park all day long, up until 9:30 when we shoot off the fireworks. So hope to see everybody there. Remember, no politics, no drinking, and no fireworks, please. If you can spread that word, I'd appreciate it. No personal fireworks is what I meant to say. We'll definitely have fireworks. If you missed it, I know Suzanne would have talked about it if she was here, but we had almost 80 kids at the triathlon, and huge hit. It was a perfect day to bike, run, and swim. So thanks to Bruce and the police officers who helped get the kids in and throughout the neighborhood, turning into a super neat event, hosted by the Licking Memorial and whole lots of other people. But a good event in the city. That's all I have. Mr. Hicken,
I don't have anything tonight, Mr. Mayor.
that's amazing. Mr. Zetz.
I actually do just have two quick things. One, thinking about food trucks, if you're thinking about some regulations, I know the Village of Shawnee Hills, who's also a client of the firm, it just instituted some regulations involving food trucks. They were a good throw set based off of Columbus, so it might be a good place to look if we're looking to start BJ.
Thanks, Brian.
I know they were drafted by someone who was really skilled in all that and looked an awful lot like me. And then second thing is the other man in the audience tonight, David Mosier, is here from my office. He came, he's an associate who started with us about a month or so ago, but he worked with the city of Delaware for a while in the criminal division, the county of Delaware in the civil division, or criminal in the city, civil in the county. And he's been helping out, and he's been doing a great job. He's also he's handling some of our municipal court stuff. He's filled in for Andy on mayor's court, so a great addition to the firm, and you'll probably see his name and initials on some of the invoices, and on the occasion, if I can't be here, and he'll probably have the pleasure of sitting in this seat and trying to keep everybody straight and lawful. So,
Very good.
thank you.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. If you need anything, give me a holler, okay? Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple items. As I reported at the last meeting, the police station bid opening is scheduled for June 29th in the afternoon. I am hopeful that we'll get competitive bids, and I'll be able to come to council on July 10th seeking authorization to execute contract. We've also started planning a groundbreaking event for that, and invitations will be going out. One comment on Resolution 2017-045. That is the resolution for the police utility vehicle. In the resolution, it states that the unit that they're going to buy is a Gravely. Late last week, they did some more shopping and found a John Deere unit that is cheaper. So we will need a motion when we come to 2017-045. We'll need a motion to amend in the third whereas, where it mentions the Gravely, to include the John Deere. And the last thing I have is the next resolution on the agenda, 046, is for a parks levy. I mistakenly previously reported to council that is done by ordinance, and it would take several readings to do. After talking with Brian, looking at the ORC, that is done by resolution. I do recommend council taking action on that one way or another this evening. That'll give us two, if it's approved, that'll give us 2 meetings in July to make sure that if we have enough time to make any modifications to the language, if it's sent back by the Board of Elections. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything for BJ? Okay, thank you, sir.
I just have one last thing. Sorry. When we get to the executive session this evening, we will head upstairs for that. Thank you.
Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor. As I wasn't here last week, I wasn't able to publish my reports for Wednesday, but I put it on the dice tonight so you have a copy. Two things I want to draw your attention to. Today we received notice from our auditors that once again we have a clean audit. No findings, no citations, no comments, just clean audit, which is a lot of hard work to get there, and I'm very proud of us. The department and the department heads working with us to make sure that we're staying in compliance, so I'm really pleased about that. There's a lot of documentation from the auditors in the back, including one of the items is what's called a supplemental audit. Because we received over $750,000 in federal funds last year, we're subject to the federal single audit requirement. Basically, what that means is we do a separate audit of federal transactions to make sure that any federal funds are spent in compliance with whatever grants that you're given, so that you've accounted for them properly and all of that. And once again, we were clean on that, so we had no problems. A lot of communities, the larger ones, run into it, particularly when they do housing money. It's very difficult sometimes to keep all that money straight, and a lot of times you run afoul of the federal requirements. So far, knock wood, we're doing really well with that. The final thing in that is as is the case usually, they ask if council wishes to do an exit, post-audit conference. I'm not asking for any kind of direction tonight, but read the materials that were in here, and then maybe we can, at the next council meeting, talk about whether councils wish to have a post-audit conference. It's not required, but they're happy to come in and meet with us if you wish. If you don't, they're happy us saying we're good with it. So just kind of keep that in mind, and maybe at the next council meeting we can discuss that further. The other thing I wanted to point out was is on the third page, RETA. They every year at this time they recalculate our cost of collections. When we have our taxes collected by RETA, there's a flat 3% fee that they take off, which is what they call an advance withholding. I mean, they basically take the 3% off, not knowing what our exact cost of collections are. When the year is completed, they go back and they run a calculation based on the number of returns, the total dollar amount collected, and there's a third factor, and they balance it out so that not all the big cities pay it all, not all the little cities pay it all, but it's a way to balance it. Our cost of collections was 2.53%, so what that means is we're going to get a rebate check of about $22,000. So that's good stuff. So we'll put those back into the police fund and street fund, and as they. That's all I have.
Good stuff. Anything for Jamie?
I have one thing for both Jamie and BJ. How are we coming with the part-time HR position? Or
We received the applications, and I forget the times and dates this week that they're scheduled. We came up with 4 that we want to interview, and those are the first round of those will be held this week.
any anticipated hire date if we don't need to repost?
I would say about a month by the time we get through background checks and everything. Usually takes a couple weeks to do that, so I'd say about a month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Congrats on the clean audit. Appreciate it. Nate,
I have nothing to report, but would be happy to answer any questions.
anything for Nate? Okay.
That's just a quarterly question.
Oh,
here.
you do that every quarter, okay, sorry. I was expecting it. Mr. Haynes,
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. One, the pre-con, we have pre-con tomorrow for the 2017 ramp paving project. So I should know by next council meeting when we're going to get started on that work. We're also putting the Columbia Road box culvert project out to bid tomorrow. We'll have an opening for that on July 11th. And then the Columbia Road Bridge, haven't heard from ODOT yet. I'm expecting to have a pre-con for that soon, and should know when they're planning to close that to reconstruct that. Other than that, happy to answer any questions.
anything for Alan?
Very quickly, how long typically do those bridges stay closed?
I'm anticipating that's going to be 2 to 3 months for the bridge.
Did you say per bridge?
For the bridge.
For the bridge.
Okay, for the one on Columbia.
For the bridge in Columbia, north of Broad, that should be 2 to 3 months, although I have not seen the contract documents and haven't had a pre-con, so I don't have an exact answer, but that's typical. The culvert down here south of Mill in Columbia, that shouldn't take nearly that long. It should be about 30 days.
And we're just doing one culvert this year?
Taylor.
There, Taylor Road culvert, that's the one we had the emergency supplemental for. We've got all of the proposals in for that, and we're reviewing them now. That is more or less what's planned for now.
Anything else for Alan? Okay, thank you, sir. Scott?
Nothing specific to report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Scott? Okay, Chief Brooks?
I was just going to mention that the mini triathlon went off without a hitch, but you took care of that. So.
Sorry. Ouch. Anything for Chief? Go ahead.
Actually, I don't think we'll have another meeting before the fireworks. Have you guys ready to go? Planned it for that? Okay.
And I'll also mention, Chief and Deputy Chief and I had a good meeting with the fire department last week to start talking about some disaster preparedness planning, and it divulged into other discussions, other cooperation, and Deputy Chief Bowles, because Bruce will be out of town, and fire department are scheduled to meet 27th or so to make sure everything's coordinated for the fireworks.
Committee chair reports. Mrs. Carter.
We had a development committee meeting this evening and covered a number of things. Scott, would you could you email out your report to the remainder of council so they can also reference the documents that you sent us, because there's many. A couple of things that we talked about, the accessory structures and the number of variances that come before planning and zoning or BZA for them to approve, and it basically looks like, they all get 100% approved, and that's a $300 fee to do that. So we're checking, we're going to really kind of analyze the cases that we've had already to see if, what the options are, if we should be changing, the percentages in which they can increase or whatever it may be. So he's going to get back with us with some options on the next meeting. So that's more to come on that. Their department is also in the midst of updating the subdivision regulations. Basically, they kind of took it down and they're rewriting the whole thing. So before, we really weren't very protected with the regulations for new subdivisions. So this should, I think you said, what, a couple months before that one is
Yes.
completely done?
It's a 3-stage process. We're kind of going through the complete rebuild. Once we have those done, we'll have a first draft that we'll go through, see if we can't poke any holes in it, play devil's advocate, make sure that's squared away, make any adjustments if necessary, and then following that, we'll have a final draft that will be ready for going through the process.
Okay. So once the committee gets that and reviews it and just, gets it to a certain point, and we'll bring that to council for approval. Food truck regulations were also discussed this evening, that basically we have none. There's a peddler's permit that comes through the police department, but it doesn't determine, it doesn't limit how long somebody can stay someplace or basically where they can park. So those are things that we're looking at to make sure that we don't have a truck park in an unsafe place or stay like a permanent structure. That's in the works. Neighboring property notifications. Anytime somebody's requesting a variance for a structure, there's some, it's very ambiguous. It says notify people within 2 parcels of the structure that's being amended. So they have decided, it's difficult, especially with the way we are in Pataskala. Some of those areas are very rural. So if you're counting 2 parcels out around the structure, you can end up not notifying one that's directly in the middle. So instead of trying to decide which of those parcels to actually notify, they're looking at like 300 feet. So that can be pulled straight off the auditor's website. So anybody within 300 feet are notified, and then if there's any question, it's done the same for everybody. You can kind of see where that falls. And there's still work on the comprehensive plan. We plan to hit that next council meeting. Get some updates on that. Lots of stuff going on. He's got very good reports that are very detailed. Next development committee meeting will be on July 24th at 5:45. From thereafter, we're going to have the second meeting each month. They're forward. And that's all.
Good. Any questions for Mel?
Yeah, I'd just like to, were we done? Was there any questions from Mel? Okay, moving on then. We did have an ag committee meeting tonight. We will be recommending approval for one application night from Helen Pack. We briefly discussed the discharge zones. We're going to follow up on that at our next meeting. Is that the 10th, Kathy? Yes. Yeah, the 10th.
Anything for Ag Committee? Mr. Hicken?
Yes, we've set a utility committee meeting for the night of July 10th at 5:30. Can't be done without it.
I'm on vacation that week. But you could have it without me, by all means.
Well, I think one of the things we want to talk about was the hydraulic study, and without you there, we'll just be looking at graphs and bars and.
You can. Don't let me stop you.
No, I think we'll have to come to a different.
Is there any desire to do it on the 17th, the off night?
Will you be back?
Be back the 14th.
17th works for me.
Let's go ahead and say we are going to have it on the 17th because I think it's something that the administration feels we need to have in me too. We'll contact Councilwoman Hayes, make sure she works that works for her schedule.
And the time will be.
5:30.
Earlier if possible. I don't know if Suzanne
If she
previously
can
had
get-
said now she could meet.
Yeah, if she can get here earlier by having it earlier, I think it helps people that are like from the administration. If we can have it during the regular work hours, if that works, we'll do that. But you can put it for that at least for now.
So you're proposing a utility meeting on the 17th at 5:30,
That is correct.
in between the 10th and the 24th regular council meetings. For those of you that weren't here last time, because of the holiday, the two council meetings will be July 10th and the 24th. Any other committee chair reports? All right, moving on. Unfinished business. Any desire to take 2017-4285 off the table?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to take 4285 off the table.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion? We need a roll on that, please.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
No.
Carter,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2017-4285 is ready for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did receive an application for a cultivator, is it a cultivation license?
It's a
BJ?
cultivation license.
Right, from the appropriately named Med Trees Incorporated. And there may be some problems with that. We'll know, we may know, but I think that now that we've had an application, it's important that we have something in place. And then there's legislation in new business that expands on this prohibition so that folks who aren't in favor of a complete prohibition from now and forever can modify that if they so choose. But I think it's important we get something on now because right now we are just with the state regulations, and I think it's important that we get something passed to protect, I'm going to say protect the city, but to have something that we have passed to regulate these businesses because they're going to start coming. We already have one application in, so I'd ask that we encourage that we pass this, and then we want to move on and do something else that other cities have done. We can do that at a later time.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would mention that as Mr. Barstow had said, there is legislation that's on the new business, and a lot of work went into that to allow for the cultivation and processing, and to be done in some ways, is my opinion at least, in a manner that would come before council in a zoning application. BJ and I spoke, and in his email that he'd sent out to council, there's one other option out there that I would throw out there that besides the three options that he had placed. The fourth option is to actually pass that under the first reading and waive the other two readings. That's under the new business. So, I worry that if this is passed as a prohibition against the cultivators and processors now, you're still speaking about potentially, 6 weeks you'd have to have, we go through all the way through July for the other two readings of the of the new business and another 30 days after that. So another 60 days before that would actually come into enforcement, and we'd have to go back and repeal this if this were passed, if this prohibition were passed this evening. So I guess I would look at it as, if this is something that we have to pass or feel the need to pass this evening, I would look to remove the prohibition of cultivators and processors from this ordinance, and then deal with the new ordinance in the correct manner, or at least in my opinion, the correct manner, with the 3 readings, would be my opinion.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, could we not modify this? First of all, this goes assuming that the cultivation and processing rules do go through their readings. I would imagine that we could modify those to say that they supersede any prohibition that was already put in place. Is that not correct? Can we, or does it already say that?
What I would do is council could pass additional legislation to repeal, assuming you pass 4285, you just flat out repeal 4285 later. So then there's never a question as to what was on the book. So that's how I would handle it, or I suggest you would.
It would, yeah. What we would have to do, though, is amend it, because if we want to keep dispensaries in there, we wouldn't want to just repeal it outright.
Well, I guess you're right, depending on, to get rid of the, yes.
Regardless, same path.
Yes.
And the reason we would want to indeed do that is because the state has nothing on dispensaries yet.
Correct.
So
nothing on processors either at this point.
I agreed, but I think that that this group, at least at one time, kicked around the idea that processors, there's a logic to co-locating processors with manufacturing. I'm sorry, with grow facilities, and so I think that's why we kind of looked at allowing that. And for me, it's I think Mr. Walters is right when it comes to whether the fact that there could be a little bit of time in there, but there could be time that the processing and the growing regulations also could get modified, and it could get bumped down the road. And I would not want to see what almost happened to us again. So, and if my final point would be, if everybody remembered, I believe we're kind of in this boat because some people felt they did not wish to waive any readings as it related to marijuana legislation, and so that's why the prohibition was not put in place. So I think I'm going to fall tonight on the side of letting the cultivation and processing regulations go through their readings, because I think like Mr. Walther, I think we've put some work into it, and I think it's a good start, but I'd want to hear what all council has to say about it.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, if we amend 4285 tonight, it's going to have to, we can't pass it. We're going to have it come back for another reading.
Correct.
So I think that what we want is the city's ability, let me get the number for the other.
4291.
It's 4291. In 4291, we take control of the entire the permitting process. It doesn't go to BZA or anybody else. And I think that's what we want. This 4285 does the same thing. It's just that it prohibits it completely. It's going to put it into place within the next 30 days. And I think that's what we want. I think what I understand, the sense of council is we want to be able to control this type of business in the city. So 4285 does that on a temporary basis. It doesn't achieve the long-term goal, which is to give more flexibility to this type of business. So I would say we pass this. I have read 4291. I like the concept in 4291. There may be some tweaks that have to come with it. We may get citizen comment or other public comment or comments from folks who are interested from the business side to tweak it. But I like the concept of 4291. My concern is that we have, for a number of different reasons, not done anything with this legislation, and I think we can pass it tonight And then we can go to a first reading on 4291 tonight and start hearing about public comment and get that rolling. Because I think 4291 is at least where I'd like to be. So it's not that I have my misgivings about this type of industry, all three types, all three portions of it. But I think that if it's properly regulated, I would have a much higher comfort level and could support 4291. So that's my 2 cents.
I had the time to come in last week and talk with BJ about this a little more in detail. My support of voting against the current ordinance that was brought before us was because it was just a prohibition and there was nothing else put together. And I didn't want to just say we were prohibiting and that was all. With this having its first reading tonight, I have gone through it and we've talked a great deal about it. I like the language. I wouldn't be in support of waiving the readings, only because I have previously stated that I felt it was really important that we go through all three of them based on the legislation and the detail and the amount of items that are in it. So with this on the table, I would support 4285 and moving forward with this one.
Any other discussion? Need a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt 4285.
We need a third
Oh,
reading.
I'm sorry.
reading.
Oh,
Okay. Kathy, would you read that for us, please?
We need a motion and a second.
Okay. Mr. Barstow makes
So
the
move.
motion.
So move on third
and
reading of 4285.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lee. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
You want a roll call on this third reading before we read it? We've done it both ways.
May as well.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
No.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes, excuse me. Now we're ready for a motion to adopt.
Okay, need a motion to adopt.
Move to adopt 4285.
Motion by Mr. Barstow. Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion? And roll, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
No.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Ordinance 2017-4289 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2017-4289, this is the second reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2017.
Any discussion? Okay, ordinance 2017-4288 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Kathy, when you're ready.
Ordinance 2017-4288, this is the first reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 1203 and Section 1263.03 and add Section 1221.06 to Chapter 1221 of the codified ordinances of the City of Pataskala and repeal all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith.
Any discussion? Ordinance 2017-4291 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready.
Ordinance 2017-4291, this is the first reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 1203 and add Chapter 715 and Chapter 1299 of the codified ordinances of the City of Pataskala and repeal all other ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
just want to say quickly, I agree with Ms. Carter that I would not be in favor of accelerating this. I think it deserves 3 full readings and look forward to the public comment and comment from administration and other interested parties, fellow council members, et cetera. Thank you.
Mr. Walther?
I would encourage everybody to hopefully look into this. I think that with the ordinance that we just passed, this ordinance is imperative that we get this through as quickly as we can. There are several places that are taking applications now for the businesses. I think everybody has read in the paper that Johnstown has five applications in right now. They only have room for 4. Youngstown just passed their ordinance unanimously, allowing for cultivation and processing, and I believe dispensaries. So this is not something that isn't happening throughout the state. It is. There are many municipalities that are comfortable with the state regulations. I think that what Mr. Hicken and myself and staff have worked on here with this ordinance does do exactly what Mr. Barstow had said, brings this to council rather than through the BZA for approval of the locations and the particulars of each application for zoning. So I'm hopeful that there is a potential that through the, how many months have we talked about medical marijuana?
Well, the ordinance that was just approved was introduced April 3rd.
So I think that there has been numerous opportunities for the public to come in and speak about both the pros and cons of medical marijuana, at least being permitted cultivation and processing, and even dispensaries in Pataskala. I think I noticed that there's another ordinance that does it a little differently. Won't necessarily provoke more discussion from the public. So I'm hopeful that in the next reading we can have a very substantial discussion about this ordinance and pick apart and tweak and work through the details and maybe have that opportunity to see if everybody's comfortable with it, to waive the readings, to expedite these. And I do that, and I suggest this solely on the opportunity that the city may have of businesses coming to our area and providing a needed service for our community, as has been discussed through our public comments for several months now.
Any other discussion?
One thing I would like the administration to do is and for Chief Brooks, is to think about the law, not say the law enforcement aspect of it, but what issues, problems that, if there are any, that the police department or the administration might see with the 3 different types of facilities, and based on maybe input that the department has received from departments in other states where this is fully developed. That would be, I think, would be helpful, at least to me, would be helpful.
Mr. Walter?
Just to let council know, I took it upon myself to actually go visit a facility in Florida, in Orlando, to see what exactly the problems were with this. It was an enlightening travel for me. When I got there, I was expecting some fortress. I was expecting some huge sign on the door saying medical marijuana. It wasn't any of that. Matter of fact, it was in a subdivision adjacent to a very large, prominent subdivision in Orlando, and you couldn't tell what it was. I spoke with the operators of this. It's been open for over a year. Spoke to them, asked them what kind of security problems they might have had. They said that the only problem they had was they had a vagrant break in to the facility for a weekend. Couldn't get into the actual place where any of the marijuana was, but break in because he was looking for food. That's the only thing that they've had happen. As far as security, I asked them through their security protocols, through the video cameraing and the other stuff. They've had 0 problems. They were very high tech. And then the last thing I would tell you, the processing that I saw, it was at state of the art. This is a business. This is not, a bunch of, as they had called it, they said there were three different type of applicants. The first ones were the hippies. The second ones were the people that wanted to start a small business, and the third ones were the businessmen. And the businessmen are the ones we want to attract. The ones that are serious about it, who are looking at making money. And I could report what they told me that they felt they were going to make per year. It was staggering, the money that they believed they were bringing in, and the tax base that they would be bringing in. So I'd be glad to talk to anybody about that who would like to know about it. But I was very impressed with it, and those are the businesses we want to attract. And I think that the ordinance that Tim and the staff worked through, we will attract that type of business. So,
Any other discussion on the first reading? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make it clear to everyone through these discussions that it has nothing to do with, personally speaking, being against medical marijuana. I know a number of my fellow council members have said the same thing. This simply has to do with the procedural, making sure we're bringing it into the city the right way, should it come here. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this has nothing to do with not supporting the use of medical marijuana. This is more about how we're setting our businesses up in our city and making sure it's right for our area.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, on to resolutions. Resolution 2017-045, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract to purchase a new, fully equipped utility vehicle through the State of Ohio Competitive Purchasing Program.
So moved.
And I think
We need a motion to
a
amend.
motion to amend.
Don't you
to the
need, don't
John
you need
Deere.
it approved before we have the motion to amend?
No, that's an ordinance. This is a resolution. Yes,
Past
ma'am.
practice has been to have a motion to adopt and then a motion to amend.
Okay.
You don't vote on the motion to adopt till the amendment's been completed, and then you go back and vote on the resolution as amended. Unless Mr. Zed says something different. That's what we've done in the past.
We'd probably do it in the opposite order and have the motion to amend and then the motion to adopt is amended, but I guess if you don't, because really if you have a motion to adopt and that motion's out there, it has to be voted on.
Right.
So, I mean, if it was me, I would probably have a motion to amend it, then adopt it as amended.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm looking for a motion to amend.
I'll make a motion to amend Resolution 2014-045 to strike the word gravely and replace it with the word John Deere.
I have a motion on the floor. Need a second. Seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
On the motion to amend, can we even talk about the motion in general for this, this piece of equipment? You know, when we were going through the budget talks, I was under the understanding that this was stricken from the budget. That it's in the budget, to me, is surprising to start with. And secondly, I would want to state that, you know, with the police station being out to bid and not receiving bids at this point, I'm concerned about spending $20,000 on a utility vehicle. The next item I would bring up is, you know, through the last few meetings, we've had several discussions about additional monies being moved around to cover some additional costs. We have several, that's through the street program or in the street department. We've had a lot of discussions about drainage problems throughout the city that we're going to be spending large sums of money on. You know, I want to ask, does anybody talk to Mr. Fox about the family that wanted to was willing to donate a utility vehicle to the police department? And we had several discussions through the budget talks about this utility vehicle, whether it was needed or not needed. I was surprised to see this on the agenda this evening.
Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Who was the second on that motion?
Mr. Lee.
Yeah.
Mr.
We have
Hicken?
time. I'm sorry, did you have a comment?
I did.
Go ahead.
I did. I just want to say that I do remember those discussions. However, it's now July and there's no donated four-wheeler. So I assume that meant that had fallen off. I don't know if anybody did indeed contact anybody about had said that they were interested and I would throw that out to anybody to see if that was the case or that fell through. So, but I have not heard anything about that.
I did have a discussion with Mr. Fox, and he said he would get a hold of them and have them call me, and I never got that call.
And was that like this week or
Yeah, that was back during the discussion.
during December?
It was in November.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Lee?
Mayor, I think that, I do recall the discussions. And I realize that we're building a police station like Mr. Walther referred to, and I realize that we need to consider the finances. But I see this more as a safety issue, and I think that it's well needed. I believe that there's several uses that the police department could use it for. As a public servant myself, and us being in a rural, community still, I think the possibilities of using it, not only for yourself, but to assist the fire department. Somebody's in the woods at the park, back in a field that's a mile back, whether it's you're chasing someone or going back with the fire department to help rescue somebody that's whatever's happened, a farmer or whatever. I think that I'm surprised that we don't have one already. I do see the financial concern, but I think the safety outweighs the concerns of the finances.
Mrs. Carter?
I agree with the safety portion of it. When I think about fireworks or street fair or various events that go on, and getting somebody quickly from one end to the other, I see the safety concern for it. And quite frankly, we have voted to build a police station, but we get very few equipment requests from the police department. I feel like in general they are very conservative with their budget, and so when they come to us and ask for something, as do all of our departments, but I believe if they've asked, then they believe it's necessary, and I'm okay with that.
Yes, sir.
We have, I don't know if council knows this, but we have 2 John Deeres over at the park garage. One of them probably doesn't have more than 20 hours on it. It sits there every year, year after year after year. It's got a spray tank on the back of it. It hasn't been used. It was purchased whenever the original, under the old regime of the park department. They purchased 2 of them. One of them sits there. It doesn't do anything. Again, I ask the question, why we haven't looked at using that John Deere for this exact purpose. It's whether we need it for. I'm not saying that safety isn't a good thing. Safety is a good thing, and having it would be something that, with the trails and the park operations and the festivals that we have, that's fine. But I don't understand why we're not using what we already have.
I think we've determined that particular model is a 2-seater with a dump in the back with that's got a spray on it. We were looking for a different type of model, which we had brought pictures of, that would seat 4. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief.
That's absolutely correct, and as well, it's 4-wheel drive.
And it's 4-wheel drive.
Okay. All I can say is those can be augmented. They could be changed to have a flat deck on the back of them. They could be you've seen them in at the sporting events, so that they come out and they get an injured player off of the field. So again, I would ask a couple more questions. This package that you're presenting for the utility vehicle, does that include the lights, the decals, all the things we talked about through the budget, where we said the trailer that you would need to trailer it around, are all those things included in the $20,000 estimate?
Yes.
Okay, so those were part of the discussion we had during the budget process. Again, I'd ask Jamie, we talked about under the financing issues last meeting, having the receipts being reduced. The last 2 meetings, we've talked about the collections under taxes to be less than what we had assumed. So again, I want to reiterate that I think we have some equipment that we could use, that we could augment to use for this. I don't know how often it would be used or how often it wouldn't be used, but we've survived and done well with 4-wheel drive vehicles. We have 4-wheel drive vehicles in the police force. This is $20,000 that I don't think needs to be spent. It's my opinion.
I certainly appreciate your Mr. Walters' comments on the fiscal responsibility, and I couldn't agree more. But when it comes down to this, like I said, I'm surprised we don't have one already, and you can't put a price tag on the safety. You really can't. And being in this line of work and doing it for a living, especially being out in a rural community, I worked out here on the fire department for 10 years before I went into the city. I can think of multiple times where we would have used it or needed your help to use it, and I just think that it will get used a lot, and it's just another tool in the toolbox for you guys to make us all safer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would like Mr. Walther. I thought that I thought that the police department had in fact taken the. That was what I thought the resolution was, that the police department was going to take the John Deere that was belonged to the parks, and fix it for their use. I mean, Mr. Hecken, what equipment does the fire department have that's analogous to this?
The closest thing,
If you know, I don't know.
my best guess is the closest thing would be the 4-wheel drive, some of the trucks that they use for fighting grass fires and stuff like that. We also have some 4-wheel drive, but they're not big. I mean, but they're big.
Okay.
Those are big. I don't see those driving down railroad tracks necessarily safely, and you certainly can't drive them on trails. And you can't whip them around fireworks, and you can't, the examples that have been given are probably pretty good examples because those are things that require something small. I don't even think the fire department has any type of 4-wheel drive carts, but then again, they're slightly different in how they, I mean, they're usually going to a location so.
I guess, I share Mr. Walter's concern on the fiscal aspect of this, the police station notwithstanding. We've seen recently where we had to pay more money to ODOT for right-of-way acquisition for a trail. We had a culvert on Taylor Road that went bad. These things happen, and so you start to add it up through the year, and all of a sudden, you're starting to talk about real money. When you start adding all those things up. The income tax, I'm not sure that to me, I take a longer view of that, but it's certainly a concern. I guess I was just surprised to see here too. I honestly thought it was done. I thought the police department had gone over and taken the parked vehicle and modified it and put a siren on it and whatever. I don't know. Put it to their use and it was over with. I was shocked. I'm not shocked, but I didn't understand this.
Mr. Carter?
The older one in the police department, or in the parks department, I have a couple of questions about it. First, what would be the cost to retrofit it? Is it comparable? Is it something that would hold up or whatever? Second, is there a possibility we could trade the older one in for some cost savings?
Especially if this is a John Deere, if
On
this is
the
being
current-
modified to be a John Deere, they're both John Deeres over at the parks. I mean, there's one that's gotten a lot of use, and there's one that has zero use. And they're both the same model, exactly the same. One's got a tank on the back of it that maybe not be easily, but could be removed and replaced when needed.
Or trading it in for some cost savings
Correct.
on the newer unit that's designed with what we need off the top. So it's just another idea.
Yeah,
I believe the one we're looking at is a 4-seater with some capability of carrying some equipment. So, yeah, that would probably be your best option, is to take that one and trade it in on the one we really want.
It's a good idea. It's a great idea, especially if we're not using it through the park department.
Sure. It's just, plus, I wouldn't want. I mean, if it is truly just sitting there, that's not the one I would want it to be used in the emergency and find out that
I would agree.
all the hoses and everything, or belts are dry rotted, and they're going to, or something like that. That would be calamitous.
Yeah, I think you're going to be, in the long run, instead of taking something and trying to modify it, we keep doing that all the time, and we end up spending more money, and we get about half or maybe 3/4 of what we really wanted. So I would say trading it in and towards the one we really want would be a smart thing to do. So, but I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here too. I mean, we're rural, and I can't believe we haven't had one before now either. If we were at Buckeye Lake, we certainly wouldn't be balking at getting a boat for water rescues, so or whatever. So we're 70-80% rural out here, and I think it'll come in handy, and it will be used for just more than something like fireworks or street fair. So, yes, sir.
This is a little bit off subject, but it kind of goes to the question that we were just discussing, and it's for Mr. Nicholson, and it is, if a piece of equipment that is designated for one area of the city is turned in to lower the cost of something for somebody else, do they get, what's the right word?
Charged.
Yeah, or either not charged, but do they also, do they realize the benefit of?
Do they get do they get
What we would have
reimbursed?
to do, because the way we track our fixed assets, and because the street fund and the general fund are separate from the police fund, whatever trade-in we would do from a fund accounting basis, the police fund would be charged, to reimburse the general fund for the value of the trade-in. So it's 6 of 1, but at the end of the day, the city pays less cash out the door. So we can handle the bookkeeping. I knew that's where you were going to go with that question, and yeah, that we can work.
Well, that, and I also want to make sure that we don't, that Parks and Rec, if it's their piece of equipment and they were going to give it up, that they would also see a realization of the benefit of, hey, we didn't use that, we didn't use it for 4 years, we're going to sell it back, but we could sure use the $2,800.
Yeah, whatever fund, if it was the parks fund, if it was the general fund, wherever that asset
Okay.
was purchased would get reimbursed for the value of whatever trade-in value we get out of it.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I think trading it in is a good idea, potentially, but I do have a couple questions about that. Number one, I'd want to make sure the Parks Department doesn't see a future use for it. Would they need it somewhere else as our parks grow? We put the levy on. I see Mrs. Walther shaking her head at me. No. So, but anyway, I think it's important to at least get their feedback on it. It doesn't change how I feel about what we have in front of us tonight. And the second thing would be is I would just, dealing with John Deere and those types of things frequently, you may get more money out of it on a gov deals than you would a trade-in, because I don't know what it is exactly, what model, but sometimes they don't give you a great trade-in price, so you may explore a gov deals option. But if the Parks Board thinks that and they don't need it anymore,
You don't need another John Deere Gator.
If it's the Gator that I'm thinking about, it wouldn't get from about 100 yards because it's not four-wheel drive on our farm.
I'm
so,
just teasing, yeah. We need
Anyway,
four-wheel
that's just a
drive for
thought.
sure.
Actually,
Any other discussion?
just to let you guys know, when they bought the two models, they bought the top end. They bought the 3-axle, 4-wheel drive, dump, power dump, everything.
They are four-wheel drive?
Oh, yeah.
I
Both
thought
of
they
them are.
weren't. Okay.
Both of them are. So they are definitely your top-end models. So anyhow, I think trading in is a great idea. It lowers the cost. It gets rid of an asset that we're not using. And, I'm just concerned that, that we would have now 3 Gators or 3 utility vehicles when we only really need 2, sounds like.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, Kathy.
Howe,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Good,
Well-
healthy discussion.
No,
Well,
that
that
was
was the
just for the
amendment.
amendment.
Oh, okay, that was just the amendment, okay. Need a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion and roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Howe,
Yes.
Took so long, I forgot we were on the amendment. Okay, resolution passes. Okay, resolution 2017-046, a resolution to proceed with placing the issue on the ballot for a permanent 0.75 mils tax levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation for parks and recreational purposes.
So moved.
So,
Moved by Mrs.
Second.
Carter, seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to bring up, Mr. Hicken and I attended a homeowners association meeting just this past week for Brooks Edge Southwest, was it, Southeast? And as we were having the discussion and the idea of a park levy came up, one of the questions that was posed to me was, what is the city giving? What is the city dedicating? Are we responsible for everything? Because, they referenced school levies that recently passed, different costs in the area. And I've had some discussion with BJ and different council members, and it's my opinion that the city does need to commit a permanent funding source to the parks, which I don't believe we can do just in the general fund each year based on whatever our expenses may be. I think it needs to be something that is dedicated and that can't arbitrarily go away, that would take some effort to divert from the parks. And Councilman Lee and I discussed this a great deal and believe that the city should commit to the salaries of park employees. That way the entire millage of the levy would go towards park improvements. That would show the city's commitment to the parks, taking on the cost of the employees, and then the public would know that if they choose to pass it, that all of the funds from it will benefit them in some way or another. So, just my 2 cents.
Interesting. Mr. Barstow?
I had the same, almost identical discussion at my homeowners association meeting about 3 weeks ago. One of the additional questions was, didn't we just pass a parks levy? That was, several people asked that, and I explained the difference and how our parks don't get any money from the county park system. But that was the similar question: was, well, what's the city doing for parks, and what are we going to get if we pass this? What will happen? So I think those are questions, and I explained what the concept was. I think those are things going forward. And I agree with Mrs. Carter that as we grow, as we take on responsibility, financial responsibilities for different projects, and we see that infrastructure, culverts and bridges and things don't stick around forever, that if we want to have a park system, we're going to have to fund it in a different way. Or future councils are going to be faced with increasingly unpleasant and almost impossible decisions about how to allocate the income tax revenues. So I think the time's
Hang on
come
a
for it.
second, and I'll go around to you.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Anybody else wish to speak? Back to you, Mrs. Carter.
I also want to point out, as we've had these discussions in depth with the Parks Board, that the city already indirectly contributes salaries towards the parks. A great deal of the work that's done is done by the guys in our utilities department. Streets department, sorry. So, you know what I meant. They all pitch in. So, I mean, there is already money being dedicated indirectly, which is also, has an impact on those departments. And then in addition to that, I would say that just based on the discussions and the other levy that people believe they've passed that will benefit the Pataskala parks, there is a great deal of education that would need to go into this initiative. And I believe personally as a ward representative that it would be my responsibility to educate as many people in my ward as I could about what it is and what it would cost them, and the difference in what they already pay, so they could make an informed decision about how they want to vote on that. So I believe while there is a separate levy committee that would have to, dedicate their time to that, it's also our responsibility to inform people of how the parks run now, because a lot of people already think that they pay for the parks through, they think that the pool is run by the city, or that the soccer programs and things have already been done by the city. So they really don't understand when we come to them and ask for money, why we're asking for it. They think that it's already being dedicated. So I just thought that'd be important to point out.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, both Toddy and Mel both said a lot of the things that I think are absolutely correct. I would like to expand a little bit on the salary part. I agree 100% that should be our contribution, but I think that when I say that, I believe that even taking the next step, that is more staff than what we currently have. I don't know the answer on 1, 2, or 3, but I think that as we talked about that, we talked at what we have now and more. And I do believe that the city needs to step up. I do believe that it will be using all of the levy money for just the parks and not salaries will go over well. And I'd also like to just say that I had the opportunity to meet with Mrs. Walther and haven't met directly with the Parks Board, but what the Parks Board produced with their goals and their plans, I think was excellent. I feel very good about this.
Any other discussion? Kathy?
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Any other motions? Anybody have any motions tonight?
Yes.
What you got?
Stand by. I would, what's that? No, I have it right here. I'd like to, looking at, that's the one to recommend to council. Kathy, do I need to read it in whole, or can I just read the name? Do I need to read the entire?
your motion.
We're going to make a
is-
motion to accept the ag application.
You can just reference the applicant.
Gotcha. I was looking at the top one. That was the one for the committee meeting. I'd like to make a motion to approve the ag district application for Helen Pack at 3629 Summit Road.
Got a motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions? Okay. Additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak? Yes, ma'am. Name, address, phone number, and what's for dinner?
Meatloaf.
Okay.
Dr. Ann Walther, 7899 Columbia Road. I have 3 hats tonight. The first is, as a citizen, I would suggest that or request maybe to explore the opportunity to order additional decals. We order the ones for the utility trailer because, as mentioned, there is another gator out there. And if ever to be used, probably be used for convenience. And typically when you order things like that, they charge you a setup fee, so you might as well maximize that. As the Park Board chairperson, I would draw council's attention, I believe, to year 3 of the Park Board levy expenditure. We had included an opportunity to work in conjunction with the Licking Park District, not the county, Licking Park District, to explore the opportunity to have a trail from Car Park through to Mill Street down to the Boy Scout hut. So that's been in a CIP plan that has been put forward for the last 3 or 4 years. So we're hopeful that that can also be some information out there about how we want to work with that levy and maximize the use of those funds. Finally, I'm here as the acting volunteer administrator of the Pataskala Recreation Association because the volunteer administrator is taking a final online. He wanted me to come and present Mayor Compton with the PRA soccer concession check for $1,150 earned this past season with 1 rain day and 1 makeup day. Our Red Can donations brought in $83.72. And the 4 ladies and 1 gentleman who helped this season, Aubrey Barrington, Reagan Bolby, Kenya Lewis, Kaylin Walther, and Burke Friel, were all just wonderful. And Carrie wants to thank the soccer fans, the soccer players who love the grilled cheese sandwiches, and then all the walkers that stopped by and just grabbed a cup of coffee to support the fireworks. So this is your check for you, and thank you very much.
A check for me for $1,000? Oh, is this for the fireworks? Oh,
$11.50.
okay.
That's not made out to the mayor, is it?
No, it's not, right now it's not mandatory.
So watch him
So
close.
let's make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Send that over to Mr. Nicholson.
Watch him close.
Easy come, easy go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Eileen DeRoff, 12520 Refugee Road, Pataskala, Ohio. First off, I think it's important for everyone to remember that a efficient government is also a somewhat scary government. Government should have debate and controversy, if for no other reason that the citizens get to hear the pieces, parts of what you're all thinking. So tonight, it was a nice meeting where I think we got to see into your brains, which brings me to another scary thought, isn't it? But at any rate, so I like the dialogue. I'm particularly concerned about just in general, everybody wants improvements, everybody wants more. And I think that's great as long as the revenue is there to provide that. I'm not sure if it is, obviously, if we're having a park levy. And it really doesn't matter to my wallet whether the city covers parts of it and then I pay another thing for this levy. The bottom line is that money's leaving my wallet. So I'm not sure for the average citizen who's thinking about this that we really care, other than the levy makes it voluntary. But then it just really means it's back to two wolves and a sheep deciding who's for dinner. And there'll be a significant number of people, and I would love to know how many people actually use the parks, percentage-wise, in the city. So I think it's important to understand there'll be a lot of people who won't use that will in the end be voted down because people will be rabid to get to the voting box to pass this if they want their kid to do the park stuff. All right, I hope that there's a significant user fee being charged in here to help cover some of those expenses, because that really makes it make a lot more sense to the taxpayer who's paying for something they don't use, but at least they feel like the people who are using it pick up a little bit of the extra tab. I definitely want to thank Councilman Walther for bringing up the discussion on, do you really need a $20,000 brand new John Deere Dealy? Now, if you do, okay, but if you already have one, I think it's crazy not to refurbish that thing, get it up to speed, and get going. Many of us drive used vehicles, and they seem to do just fine with maintenance. So after you buy that $20,000 vehicle, the next day it's probably worth $17,000. So I really think that you need to think about the big picture here. We've got school systems coming after us, eating us alive, and now they're going to come back for maintenance levies. And then you just go, oh, well, then there's just this park levy, and then there's the, it just kind of goes and goes and goes. And, in the end, these same people have to be able to feed their children, clothe their children, get a college fund set up. And at what point do you overburden them? Now, in general, you try pretty hard, I think. But I don't ever want you to forget that big picture, that drops make a bucket. So when you keep nickel and diamond, at some point, it's a real burden for some of these citizens. So, again, thank you for starting that discussion. That's really important. And the other discussions, too, about the park levy in general. So I appreciate your time and effort that you folks put in, and just remember the big picture.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay.
Hey, Mayor, can I just mention one other thing I forgot to mention during my report, and I apologize.
Sure, go ahead.
For that. I wanted to highlight a cooperative effort between the police department and the public service department that they are undertaking. The police department for many years has paid for a storage unit, I believe, for many years, at cost $1,000, $2,000 a year. About $2,000 a year to store files and whatnot. There's a storage building down at the Creek Road Service Garage that we're going to do a little bit of work on, and they're going to start using that for that purpose and get rid of the storage unit. So I applaud the cooperative effort between the departments, and it's good stuff.
Very good.
Thank you.
I need a motion. from somebody.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Mr. King, Mr. Nicholson, Mr. Stankunas, and Chief Brooks are to be invited into this executive session.
Got a motion?
Want me there?
I
don't have to be.
No.
Yeah, I just assumed you're one of the usuals, so. And Mr. Zetz, if you want to be named. Mr. Zetz.
And Mr. Zetz.
Second.
Second. Got a motion seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion and roll.
Picken,
Yes?
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes. Okay, motion passes. We're going upstairs.
Come out of executive session.
I'll make the motion.
Where's it? We lost Todd.
Did you make the motion?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll second.
And seconded by Mrs. Carter. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Carter.
Waiting on time.
Yep. He'll be here. Got a motion, got a second, discussion, and roll.
Walther,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow, Lee,
Yes.
Picken,
Yes.
Actually, you were just nominated for something, Todd, I'm sorry.
And you said yes, yes.
Okay, we're out of executive session at 8:45. Okay, let's see, let's go roundy round, and we'll start with Mr. Powell.
I have nothing.
You're killing me. Mr. Walther.
I just want to announce we have a street meeting, street committee meeting for the 24th of July. I believe that's, do we go 5 o'clock?
You guys
Kathy,
are
what did we
5,
change it
yeah.
to? 5?
Yeah, 5.
Okay, 5. Major issues will be Oak Meadow and the engineering challenges that the plans are presenting at this point. That's all I have.
Anything, Mr. Zetz?
Nothing?
Well, I just want to, I did fill this out. It says Summit Station Lions Fireworks Fun, just so everybody knows. I'm not skating off the. Where'd
And you
just
hear
get
the
that from,
tone,
Carolina?
right? Like the disappointment.
It was sad that we called him on it.
That was so fun. She said, hey, I want to give you a check for $1,000. Okay, yeah, I want to give the mayor a check.
Jimmy V's.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
go, Mayor.
We know it'll go to a good cause.
It does.
It's an excellent cause.
It does. And it is. It's fabulous.
Yep, looking
Mr.
forward to it.
Hickman?
I think that donation was great. Congratulations to Jamie on the audit information. I look forward to seeing what citizens decide with the Parks levy. I am going to, I'm quite certain, work on as much as I possibly can. But I think, as was said earlier, there will have to be a fairly intensive education program associated with the committee that does that. So I'm looking forward to that. That's all for me.
Mr. Lee?
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Barstow?
Well, I look forward to the discussion on the marijuana issue. I think that'll be interesting. I also, again, on the Parks levy, the Parks folks, they've got a lot of education to do out in the community to convince voters that that's a good deal and that they're going to get a good value for the money that they spend. And to Mr. Rolfe's point, whether the money comes out through income tax or whether the money comes out through a property levy, it still comes out of your wallet. And so, again, as we move forward financially, fiscally, we have to be very, very careful in the city as to how we spend, because we're getting to the point where we have obligations that we've decided we're going to have through council, and we have to make sure we can pay for those and continue to provide basic services to the citizens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Carter?
I just wanted to say I'm always really impressed with the Jersey Baptist Care Week, and it's always is a little awkward when they come in here and thank us, because I just feel like we should just be thanking them. So seeing the kids out there and doing stuff is encouraging. It gives me hope. as far as the park levy is concerned, I'm really glad that's moving forward. The education does need to happen, and the money ultimately all does come from the taxpayer. I just think it's important for them to see that the city is committed to the success of the department and not going to be, one of the first things that is on the chopping block if something comes up. So I really just think it's, the commitment, especially based on some of the history that the city had with having the Parks and Recs underneath them. And a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Pickett,
Yes.
Walther.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
I didn't want to get too far.
You got yours with you?
Makes it a lot harder.
Doing that to my
Sure
kids.
does. I remember those